Hi everybody! Today I'm going to show you how to make one of these beaded ornaments. It's a net that goes around, actually an ornament I got at the Dollar Tree. It came in a tube of I think 12 or so of different colors, 2 different colors, and I just find that adding beads over it, it's a nice size to work with. They have much smaller ornaments, so get the size up if you're getting Dollar Tree ornaments. And then I've added this ornament hanger from Amazon. So today we're just going to go over how to do the netting around the ornament. The size seed beads that I used these are all Toho's, which is a Japanese brand of seed bead. Most of the beads are 11 O's, and the intersection piece are 8 O's. I got a mystery grab bag of them, so I'm not sure what color those are, but this was my 8 O's here. And then I've got some gold luster ones with, I have no clue what is underneath, and then some silver lined light topaz happening. And I chose to do all of this gold on gold over a gold ornament to give it kind of a nice vintage Christmas feel. So go ahead and get your materials. You're also going to need some polyester thread and a beading needle. Beading needles, if you're new to beading, are soft and flexible and have a very small eye to them. And you'll want to make sure you're not using cotton thread because it breaks. So if you're not sure about your thread, if you take it and wrap it around your fingers and tug hard, it should not break. So if you do the tug test, it should be fine. And you'll need a pair of snips or scissors to be able to trim everything when you're finished. But otherwise, this is what you'll need here. Get it all in shape. I also like having a bead mat to help keep my beads in place while I am going through this. So, all right, go ahead and get your materials together and let's go. And just a little backstory, I feel like this ornament is going to be the end of me. Clearly my beads are a mess. This is the third time of me trying to make this, and I have dropped the beads multiple times. So you can't see off screen here, but all around my desk are these little beads, and normally I would take the time to sort these out. I find that I can work on it even without them being sorted, so apologies, it's not going to look the prettiest, but it's what we're using. So whether you're using multiple colors of the 11 O's or however you want to do it, basically this pattern consists of 11 O's for the bulk of it and an 8 O whenever they intersect. So let's get to it and see how far we get on my lunch break here. I am using John James beading needles in a size 12. The whole thing is incredibly frustrating. Actually, let me rephrase. The process of threading a needle and thread management and tying knots, it's everything that has to do with the thread is the hardest part of beading. I got lucky. Okay, anyway. So thread your needle, and the amount of thread you should work with is what you can manage. But for me, if I take the thread and I stretch my arms twice, so 2 full arm lengths, and I'm going to say that's roughly 3 yards. It's a lot of thread, but I know that it's more than enough to do the whole thing. So I like working with more thread and dealing with knots. You may not like that, so if you need shorter thread, work with what's comfortable for you. And I'm off camera now trying to get the thread all the way through. So I double up my thread when I work with it all the way, you'll see, until I get to the end. So here's the tail, and I have, I don't know, maybe 1.5 feet, 18 inches or so of loose thread available. So that's my working part. And I don't mind taking the time to pull all the thread through. I really dislike tying knots, so I try with these. They're small enough, you might not even need quite that much, but you can get a whole ornament completed without needing to add more thread in this case. So let's get started. So to start, I've already measured. I'm going to be doing 7 repeats. So I'm making a repetition of 7, and then I'm going to be doing 7 petals basically every time I go around. So my pattern that I'm going to be working with, I'm going to use one of the 8 O's, and then I'm going to pick up a light gold, a dark gold, and a light gold, and then another 8 O. So my pattern here, it's 4 and then I repeat. So I'm back to my repeat already. So light, dark, light, white, light, dark, light, and white, and light, dark, and light. And I'm going to do this until I'm back to my repeat here, and I should have 7 white beads, 7 of my 8/0s, and I currently have 5, but I need to do the extra seed beads. So the pattern should go all the way around. So let me do a light, dark, light. Okay, so there is 5 repeats, and I want to get to 7. All right, so my next one is a 8/0, light gold, dark gold, light gold, 8/0, last set. Oops. And I'm going to just caution you to take your time, double check, make sure you've got the pattern right, make sure you've got the right beads in the right order every time, because you'll save yourself a hassle if you don't have to undo it. So just to show before I start bringing it all the way down, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it looks like I'm missing a bead here on the end. What happened there? And then I'm just going to hold it up to make sure. Sorry, my family's kind of loud in the background, so bear with me. Looks like my light gold fell off my needle. So, all right, so I've got all of my beads here, 28 beads. I'm going to go ahead, and how I handle my thread management is I stab my needle into my bead mat, and then I can just manage the thread and know that I'm not going to accidentally stab myself. So I'm very gently pulling my thread through while holding my beads in my hand until I get the tail free. And now I know I'm running up to the end and I don't want to go too far. So with the tail, what we're going to do is we're going to tie a knot to form this into a circle. Tie once, really gently. And then I'm going to do a surgeon's knot, tie it, loop it around like a normal, and then before tightening it, loop that thread around one more time. All right, so that went around twice, and then I'm pulling it really slowly and gently because sometimes these things get twisted and my beads get caught in the knot, and then that's just a pain. And then I tug really tight, and then I'm secured. So I've got a ring formed, and before I go farther, I'm going to go ahead and double check that this actually fits my ornament. So it's snug, it just barely fits. If you're using all 11/0s, which is okay, it might be too small. So you'll have to kind of play with the sizing of it. If you need it, you can add one more bead around. If you're working with a bigger ornament, the proportions might be a little bit different. So this really is just designed to go around one of this particular size Dollar Tree ornaments because it has this nice small top. And again, if I have a repeat of 7 going, I could have done an 8th repeat and it would probably still be okay if it really is too small. Or I could have added 1 bead each if it was really, really too small. So it would be, instead of a repeat of 4 beads, it could be a repeat of 5. Anyway, at this point, I have a tail hanging out, and there's 2 approaches to this. One is to take your needle, pull it through a little ways, and then yank on it to slide it over a little bit. I've had pretty horrible luck doing that recently. The knot just gets stuck. So instead, I'm going to risk it again and pull out a second beading needle. Attempt to thread this and then just sew the end in. And you don't have to do it at the beginning. I just find that it gets tangled. It gets in my way. Please be lucky. I just need you a little bit. No, I missed it. Let me try. And then, so I pinch the thread between my thumbs and then shove the needle on top. So instead of shoving the thread through the needle, I'm basically shoving the needle onto the thread, and that seems to be the most efficient way to do this. So it doesn't really matter which direction we go, but I'm going to just shove my needle through now a collection of beads. Do all the way through. It's not going through. Come on, line up. Come on, friends. And when I'm done, what I'm going to want to do is make sure that I'm coming out between the gold beads and not by my 8. So I'm just going to, I'll probably go a little farther, to be honest. Let's see if I can get it in there a little more. The 8 beads are where we're doing our intersections, and they're going to be kind of active, so I don't want to cut my tail off there. So all right, I'm pulling the tail all the way through. I can pull the needle off. So my knot is here. My thread comes out to here. So for me, that's the wiggle room that it has to get past before it might potentially come undone, and I think that's good enough. And then I'm going to take my snips and swirl it a little bit, and there you go, hidden tail. All right, time to bead. So I tied my knot, and I'm kind of stuck between these two. So just for a clean start, I'm going to go through just this one bead here. And I'll admit this very first row is the trickiest. Something about probably how tight I tie my knots. When I tie this into a circle, it just makes it a little harder to get the needle in. So patience, and try not to stab yourself. Breaking needles absolutely is a part of it. So I'm going through one bead. Again, I don't have a problem parking my needle while I pull through, just to make sure that I don't get anything tangled. My tail got stuck. There we go. All right. Now, I'm coming out of the bead in this direction, and I tend to like going up and around this way. If you like going the other way, that's fine. Just flip it over. Whichever direction you're coming out of the bead, so my thread is coming out that way, is the direction you're going to go. So at this point, I'm going to make a flower petal like this, or a star, and every time I come up, I'll go through the 8-0 bead. So the pattern is, it's always wherever you have an 8-0, it's a light gold on either side, and then the distance is connected by the dark. So you'll have more and more of the dark color here. So I'm going to do a light gold, a dark, a light gold, and a white, a light gold, a dark, and a light gold. So I'm going to double check that that's what I have on my needle. Looks good. And then I'm going to go through this next 8-0 bead. Again, if you're just doing all one color, that works too. All right, so I'm going through the 8-0 bead, parking my needle and gently pulling through my thread. Tugging gently so it's there. So that's my first petal. All right, so we're going to do that all the way around. 1, 2, 3. 3 of my 11-0s, my white. 1, 2, 3. All right, double check on my needle before I do any more. And then sometimes I'll push these off my needle just to get them started so that I have a full range to move with. And I won't pull them all the way through the thread and then pull it all the way through again. It's just not efficient. Again, this first row always takes me forever. I really got to figure out how to not tie it so tight. I like everything tight though. All right. Come on. All right, got it through. Park my needle, gently pull it through. And there's my second petal. One thing that I love about Toho beads, or any of the Japanese beads, is their consistency and size. When I first got started, I bought cheap beads because they were cheap, and I found in order to do something like this, I spent so much time scouring the beads for consistently sized ones, and it drove me bonkers. So I definitely have decided that it's worth the investment for the fancier brand. Don't buy them from Michael's, they're too expensive. They're way overpriced, but there's some great bead resources that I highly recommend online just to get Toho brand beads. So these are Toho's. There's also the brand Miyuki. They have seed beads that are, I think, a little bit smaller, and just their round beads. And then they have their Delicas, which are a lot more expensive and incredibly uniform. They're more like cylinders. So for me, Toho's are like my favorite, and I use these most of the time. But my Yuki Delicas have their place too, so I'll do a little bit of those every now and then. And I still have all of my cheap beads that I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate into the projects that are a little bit less precise, just to use them, you know. All right. Other thing that's important, regular sewing needles aren't gonna work. Actually, hold on, before I go on my rant about thread. Sewing needles. You'll notice that my thread is starting to twist up on itself. I don't know if it's just because I'm using the cheapest polyester thread rather than actual beading thread, but if I take the time to kind of straighten it out, when I pull through again, it'll still get bunchy, but I'm avoiding potential knots by coaching it along. So that's also another reason why I park my needle before pulling it through. See, I'm a little bit twisted, but it doesn't knot in the same way that cotton thread does. Sometimes I also keep my finger in play to help sort this out. Man, I made this, the last time I made this particular ornament, it didn't knot at all. I was like super lucky, and then I spilled the beads everywhere and set myself up for failure or something. There we go. All right, pull that one through. So I find that sometimes if my thread's twisted, I'll hold it and let my piece unspin, and that helps a little bit. Okay, I'm doing a lot of talking and probably should be focusing on the beadwork more, but that's okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I don't need another white. Okay. 1 bead per petal, 1 white bead per petal. So if you find that you've done multiple, go back and double count. Every petal is going to have the same. Like I was saying with beading needles, regular sewing needles are a lot stiffer, and sometimes depending on whether you're aware of what size you're getting or not, they can be too thick for the beads. So beading needles are generally longer and a lot more flexible, which is what you need in order to be able to get around. So I actually have quite a bit of give here. You can kind of gently, right, a lot of give there. So if you can, splurge on the good beading needles. If you get the cheap stuff, your thread gets stuck in them, the whole thing gets to be a bit scratchy, and again, the more you do this, the more you're going to be like, oh, I want the good stuff. Like me, it's not worth the time and frustration here. But work with what you have. If you've got cheap beads, sort them out and try and get the most even size. If you've got cheap beading needles, they'll work. If you break a needle, it happens. No biggie. I've gone through many. All right. Just 2 more petals, and then we'll be on to our next round. Hopefully by this point, you're working way more efficiently than me, and you're just waiting for me to stop talking and get to work. So again, I have a total of 3 11-0s, 1 8-0, and 3 11-0s. I just am doing a pattern with the light golds closest to my 8-0. I got 2 packs of these darker toned ones from the mystery bags from Auntie's Beads. And so I'm like, okay, I have a lot of these. They're not exactly a color I would normally use, but for Christmas, that vintage gold actually looks really, really pretty. All right, last petal. 1, 2, 3. My joiner. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this time, when it gets bigger, it can sometimes be hard to see where you go into. So I'm going to go into the white bead on this side, going that way. And actually where I'm going to be going next is along here and through this next white bead. So I'm going to go through my 8-0, through my next 1, 2, 3 11-0s, and through the second 8-0 bead. And what that's called in beading terms is stepping up. Sometimes, generally not this first round, but every other round I can go through all of them in one fell swoop. So what I'm going to do is just give myself a little thread to work with. come through. 1, 2, 3. So I'm coming out. So I have the 3 11-0s and that second 8-0. All right, and once I'm lined up, I can just take my time now, park my needle, and pull through. One thing that I'll advise when working with thread is while you're sewing through, try not to sew through the thread. It happens sometimes when you do that. It's really hard to undo if you've made a mistake, and it's hard to get things any bit tighter. So, all right, there's my first round. 7 petals. It fits on top of the ball, so I can show you that here. There you go. So now the next petals, we're going to still connect between the 8 O's all the way around. And this time, we're going to be increasing the number that we're doing. So between each, we're going to do, instead of 1 dark gold bead, we're going to do 2. So again, I'm coming out from a 8-0, so my first color is going to be a light gold, 2 dark golds, a light gold, and a white. Light gold, 2 dark golds, and a light gold. That's what's on my needle. You can see that. 4 11-0s, an 8-0, and 4 11-0s. And now here I'm going to go through this bead. And what I can do is I can use my thumbnail and push the bead away. Sometimes they like to settle low, so the hole is a little bit lower. But if I can push it up, I have a nice clean shot at getting my needle through. Again, all future rounds are a lot more about counting and a lot less about trying to jam your needle in there. It's just that first round is tricky. All right, so there's my next petal all the way around. 1 light, 2 dark, a light, pick up an 8-0, light, dark, dark, light. Ooh, make sure they're all on. I dropped a couple. This is why I probably should have sorted them out, but whatever. Seriously, I dropped them all twice. All right, through the 8-0. Yeah, I emptied my vacuum cleaner, tried to vacuum them up, realized I hadn't emptied my vacuum cleaner as well as I thought, and then I was sorting it out amongst the dust. It was so gross. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pick up a white. 1, 2, 3, 4, and go all the way through. Again. Okay, light gold. I gotta think through. I'm just used to picking up 4 of any color, but these matter. 1, 2, 3. All right, 4 white, 4. Pop that middle bead up and pull through. So already I just pulled it and got a huge bunch that got picked up. So I'm gonna take my time and work this out. If your thread is doing this, you're probably stubborn like me, and it's probably too long for you to truly manage well. But again, I really dislike tying knots and find that if I just go easy, it works out okay. Dark, dark, light, white, light, dark, dark, light. All right, double check it before you spend the time to pull it through. All right, just 2 more petals for this round. 1, 2, light, white, light, 1, 2. All right. Park my needle and pull it through. La-di-da. Last petal, and again, this time we're going to step up. Okay. So I'm going to go through this 8-0 and continue on until I get through this 8-0. So I should be coming out on that side. So just to be, everything shift here, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to go push it up with my thumb, and I'm bringing my needle all the way through those until it comes out past that 8-0 and only that 8-0. It's going in here and coming out there. I just stabbed myself with my other beading needle that I didn't put away. All right, so now I've done the first round of petals, and now the second round. That's how it's coming along. Nice and shiny. All right, so it's going to be more of the same, and all we're going to do is adjust the number of the dark gold beads in between each. So this next round, we've done 1, we've done 2, now we're going to do, you guessed it, 3 of the dark gold beads. And I like working with this off the ornament until I absolutely have to at the end. It's more comfortable for me to have it in my hand. So, all right, light gold, 3 dark golds, 1 light gold. So there should be 5 beads. Your center, light, 1, 2, 3 dark, and 1 light. All right, so I have 11 beads total, 5 on either side of a center point. And pull through. My tail's getting a little bit close to my work, so what I'm going to do is take my needle and adjust it, make the tail just a little bit shorter, and I couldn't quite show it on here, but basically you're figuring out which side is the knot tail and you're pulling it so your needle slides along. All right, let's do this. Light gold. 1, 2, 3, light gold. White, light gold. I know I'm bouncing all over where I pick up the beads. 1, 2, 3, and a light gold. All right, 5 white, 5 all the way through. I will have to listen to the playback on whether you can hear the family's argument. It's time for the kids to get started on their schoolwork, and my husband's amazing and encouraging them to do such, but they all are basically right outside my door arguing about what needs to be done and what am I going to confess to. And, all right, worth the pause to just make sure what's on your needle is what needs to be there. If you make a mistake, it's easy enough. If you are using different size beads than what I'm doing here, the number count might be a little different. If all of the beads are 11s, if you're not using a slightly bigger accent bead, or if you're using an even bigger accent bead, like a 3mm bicone or something, you can attempt this pattern and see how it fits. I often have to make adjustments while I'm working, which is why I've had to do this one so many times. But I think the feel of it, I'm going to probably do a separate video on what to look for when designing one of these. Basically, it's a horizontal netting pattern that goes around an ornament. The first time I ever made one of these, I followed a YouTube video and I followed it blindly. I didn't know what I was doing. It was really fun. I enjoyed making it, and then I was a little frustrated with how it fit on my ornament because it was so baggy across the top and I didn't know how to make it more secure. So I'm hoping that if you go to a Dollar Tree and get the same ornament that I did and you're working with beads like mine, the experience for you will be a little bit less or a little more satisfying than the one for me. 1, 2, 3. All right, so I got my 5 light gold, 1, 2, 3, and another light gold. All right, we got, after this one, I think I'm going to have to pause here and deal with my family, and we'll come back and finish this. But I am planning on doing this full video real time, so feel free to fast forward ahead if you've got the pattern, or pause if you don't want to hear my ramblings. It's totally okay. I'm not offended. I won't know, probably. All right, last set. Light, sorry. 1, 2, 3. I'm also debating, should I be counting out loud? Because you also might be doing your own counting in your head. And if I just start calling out random numbers, I'm going to actually mess both of us up if I do that. Okay, double check what I have on my needle. All right, and again, I'm going to go through this last 8-0 and step up to come out of the next 8-0. Push it up, slide it through. See how much nicer that is? That first round is just a pain in the butt, but I like it tight. I guess that's how it goes. All right. And my tail, again, is a little bit getting too long, so I'll adjust my thread. All right, so let me just show you where I'm at, and then I'm going to take a pause here. There you go. And as we work, these points will come down a little bit. So right now it's sticking off a little bit from the side, but pretty cool. Let's see if you can figure out the pattern. We had 1 dark bead, 2 dark beads, 3 dark beads. Yep, that's it. We're going to be doing 4 gold, dark gold, and then the rest of it's all the same. So this should become very familiar and soothing to you as I, off camera, shake out a knot that I see somewhat twisting and forming. I just wanted to straighten out my yarn, make my tail just a little shorter. All right, here we go. So, again, apologies for the mess. 1 light gold, 1, 2, 3, 4 dark gold and a light gold. Pick up a white one, 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and a light gold. Double check the count, looks good. Find where your thread is coming out from and go skip this one and go into the next petal. So as it's bigger, where you go into becomes a little bit more subtle. So that's just something to be mindful of. If you see a bead with 4 strings, like an X, that's done. If it only has 2, it's probably one of the ones you're going to need to go through at some point. And when you get back around to it, when we end up over here, we're going to see a 4 and a 3, and that's the one we'll go into. We'll land there when we're done. All right, let's do that again. A light bead, 4 dark, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a light bead, and a white, another light, dark, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I find picking the beads up off my mat without using my fingers is way more efficient than individually beading it on threading each bead individually. I will admit that when I first did it, voila. When I first did it, I took my needle and I took the color I needed, and I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, there's that, and the white one. All right, so 4 dark, 2 lights, and a white. Or I can do this. Oh my gosh, 1. I'm trying to do a speed test here. 2, 3, 4, and a light gold. So very, very easy to just use your needle to flip the bead up onto your needle. Again, use my thumb to push the bigger bead out of the way. That also helps me make sure that I'm not catching the thread. I will say if you are using smaller beads, like you're not using an 8/0, your count might just need to get adjusted from the beginning. Instead of doing 3 beads and going, you might want to do 4 beads on either side before you get to your connector. But the beauty of this is the different ways that you arrange your colors make a huge impact on the pattern that you're forming with your beads. So this one I like, it's almost like an ombre. You're going from dark in the center of the line to light at the intersections. I've done some where I have everything in this line is one color and everything in this line is another color, and I think that looks extra special. So the number of beads should be consistent no matter what the coloring is. The number of beads definitely is impacted though by the size, like I said. All right, we got 4 petals down, 3 to go. And I'm pretty sure on camera all of my gold beads might all look the same. The lighting is just a little harsh, but you can kind of, I don't know if that helps, you can see it there a little bit better. All right, 2 lights, gold. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a gold. I think, oh, so here I can already see I have 1 too many on this side. So I'm going to slide that off before I go too far. And again, sanity check before you slide it through. It saves so much time. So one of the things that I considered for this video is cutting it short and chopping out all of the awkward pauses while I'm working on this. But somebody asked, how long does it actually take you to do this? So I thought that it could be helpful to sort of see real time what it is that I'm doing. And granted, I'm working with a mess on my bead mat here. This really is not ideal. I like to be able to kind of go flat against the mat when I'm picking up pieces, so I usually pick them up on the edges. And right now as I work, I'm like, my hand's resting on beads. Okay, so this is my last petal, and if you'll remember, we're going to go in to this side of the bead, carry through along this line, and exit out of that. So we're going to go all the way through 2 size 8 beads in every seed bead in between to step up. Okay, and double check that I'm in the right spot, and I got all my beads where they need to go. 4, 4, yep, we're looking good. All right, so this next one is the last of the increases. And as you would expect, I mean, as I hold it, you can kind of get the sense that it's arcing just a little bit. One thing that you might notice is if your tension's loose, let me try and bring some around here. As you're pulling, you might notice gaps where if you see a lot of the thread, every round after I step up, I like to make sure that it's secure. So I just tug, and again, we're working with strong thread and fairly strong beads, and I kind of just move it around, and there's still a little bit of gapping in there, so I can tighten it up just a little bit more. If the gapping is in the row before, you just sort of have to work it from the beginning before you stepped up. So you pull this one, I'm coming out of here, so I pull this one all the way around to get any excess, and then that should tighten everything up nicely. So again, every row I tighten it up a little bit and bring this on, and as we work, these are going to get pulled down a little bit more. So that's how it's shaping. Pretty nice, huh? All right, next row, let's do it. Coming out of my size 8, I've stepped up, and now I'm going to do 5 of the dark gold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dark gold. Grab a light gold and a white. Another light gold. Behave. 5 dark golds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a light gold. Again, when I look at it up here, I'm checking to make sure I've got my light golds where they're going, and I make sure that they seem the same size. If you're working with inexpensive seed beads from China, they're usually very uneven. Keeping that balanced to make sure that the same distance of seed beads is on both sides of your center makes a huge difference. So you'll notice also as I'm laying this flat, each round, this one started off pretty pointy and they each get quite a bit more flat, but when they're on the ornament as they shape, they'll stretch out. So it's just when you lay it flat, it doesn't. Yeah, anyway, all right, light gold, 5 dark golds, and another light gold, a white, light gold, 2, 3, 4, and I don't have room on my beads, so I'm going to slide my needle, excuse me, so I'm going to slide them down a little bit. And 1 more dark gold to go and a light gold. All right, make sure I got everything I need. If you push them off the needle and realize, oh, that was wrong, you should be able to push them back onto the needle as long as you're still on both of your tails. Sometimes I don't catch the mistake until I'm coming around again, because as I'm looking I might catch, oh no, I missed a bead. And at that point, I undo, I take my needle off, I unthread everything, I take it all out, and I do it right. For me, it's worth fixing if you find the mistake. I think there are some crafts that it's a little bit easier to disguise, and honestly, one mistake you could probably just keep going, but I like how nicely it looks from any direction when it's done well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a light gold and a white, light gold, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a light gold. Let me slide it through. To be honest, this might take me less time than normal because I'm really trying to do it right and not make mistakes, so I'm double checking my work more than I usually do. I usually always have some sort of mistake that I need to fix. But I care that I do it right for you, so here we are. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 4. All right. All right, 4 done, 3 more to go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a light gold. All right, looks good. Slide those off. All right, for those interested in making their own patterns, there is a point you get to with these where you're roughly about halfway down the ball, and at that point then your pattern should mirror. So when we get back around and we finish this row, we're going to do the same spacing that we just did. We're going to do this exact gold with 5 dark golds. Gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, gold, 1, 2, 3, 4, right, so we're going to do 2 rounds of 5 with the dark gold. We're going to do a round of 4, a round with 3, a round with 2, a round with 1, and then we're done. So we are just about halfway there. And again, that first row just takes longer. If you're not like me and you didn't tie it too tight to start, it might not have been quite so painful to get going. 3, 4, 5. All right, last one. Going in, there's 3 strands, so we're making the 4th. We're going to come up along here and come out of that bead up there. So this is as wide as this pattern gets. Come on, bead. Be an opening. Okay, there we go. Go through all of them and out. Some of the beads that I've done have much larger repetitions. This is a total of 7 11-0s on either side of your 8-0. So definitely my needle is long enough to get through. But there you go. So that's halfway. If I put it on the ornament, just to give kind of an example of how I know it's halfway, the ornament's midpoint is right around here. And if I take this and I hold my thread because I don't want it to just kind of buckle because of it, I can pull these beads down tautly and it's definitely at the halfway point. So that's roughly center of the sphere, is right kind of where my thumb is. So we're going to do another set with the 5 dark, 4, 3, 2, 1, it'll get smaller, and I'll end up, the bottom will have a small little opening similar to what we have at the top. I don't often close this up more. I've tried it, making it decorative at the bottom. I don't always like the results, so anyway. You now know how to bead, so you're welcome to play around with how you want to finish things off. Okay, here we go. Next round, we're going to do the same. Light gold, 5 dark, 1 more light gold. We're going to go all the way around like that. All right. Yeah, so as I'm working, I can see a little bit of thread there in that next round. Can you see that? So I think with this then, I'm going to go ahead and take a moment and just make sure that I tighten things up just a little bit more. And as I'm working, so now when I pull on it, that thread's quite a bit smaller. If it's too loose, it'll just drape and you'll see some of the threads every now and then. So that's why I just like to make sure that it's snug, and I'm a little bit neurotic like that. However, when you're at the bottom, keeping it tight is going to be the thing that you wrestle with once you're actually working on the ornament directly, because it's going to get smaller, right, as it goes around. So at some point here, we're going to have to put this on the ornament and bead directly on the ornament, and getting the feel of how to hold your hand and how to keep it tight. That's something you'll just need to get used to. All right. 5 and 1. And I keep saying 5 and 1 because I'm doing a separate check in my brain for the light golds. But really, if you're doing this with all one color and not this two-tone, it's 7 and 1 at this point. So those are all dark. The light ones are the ones that are mixed in. I didn't plan this right. All right, here we go. 1. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a light, and a white, and a light. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh wait. Oh, that's not right. See, I can see from here they're not balanced. So I counted the light gold as though it were the dark gold and then stopped at 5. There we go. All right. Push through, stab down, pull your thread through, call it a day. Tug a little bit if you need to pick up some slack. Rinse and repeat. Bead sorting break done. Boom, boom. We're back in business, baby. 1 light, 5 dark, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, light, light, light. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, light. All right, I'm gonna do one more complaint about Chinese seed beads or inexpensive seed beads. They're not necessarily all made from China, but they're definitely not made in Japan. But they sometimes the hole isn't big enough. So I'll go through all this trouble. That's not even the first color I need to do. Here we go. 1. And one of the first couple of beads that I'll put on my needle won't be able to go over the eye of the needle or the thread. It'll just stop. And with these Japanese beads, that very rarely happens. And with some beads, you can use a bead awl and punch through it to force the hole, but I've broken beads like that. Not necessarily worth it. Also, I'm looking, and this one seems pretty irregular. I don't know if you can see that there. This first of the dark gold. It just doesn't look good. So for me, I'm willing to throw that one away. Again, with the Chinese beads, they're just quickly made and really inaccurate. So, all right, I got all my beads up. Go through, stab down, pull your thread. And at this point, I know my tail is getting, whoa, what just happened there? I was just pulling the tail, sorry. My tail is getting a little bit on the shorts. My tail's getting caught up in my working thread, so I think after this next one I'm going to go ahead and shorten my tail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. I will say these bead mats that I got, I think this one might have been from Hobby Lobby or Michaels. They're great. I got a bead mat from Amazon that I really didn't like. But having this nice fuzzy texture to work off of does make it easier to work with the beads. So I highly recommend if you're going to be doing this much. They come in like 2 or 3 packs in the bead accessories. Yeah, so here's my tail. So pull it through. This one's the short one. Grab my needle, move it along. But I do highly recommend a bead mat. If you've got some sort of velvety thing, you'll have to play with it. If the nap is too strong, like if it's so directional, it'll just throw the beads around everywhere. But here we go. Looks balanced. And I'm back at my 3, so that went fast. All right, and the good news is here on out we go smaller. So I've done my row with 5 of the dark gold beads, which means it's 7. I'm just kind of making sure it's where it needs to go. I've confirmed that that has brought me to the halfway point on my ornament. So again, if you're pattern designing, you only want to start repeating the row you just did and making it smaller from here on out after you've hit the midpoint. So I'm roughly halfway down, and I know it looks like it's baggy, like it's not hanging well, but you can see as I pull this one down, as they get smaller, the beads snug really nicely around. Look how pretty that is. So, all right, so let's do it. So I think that I could go another row or even 2 before I actually need to work on the ornament. But that being said, once I pull it off and I'm going flat, they do start to kind of collapse in on each other, and it makes it a bit messy to figure out where you're going. So I'm going to do one more row on my hand like this, and then I'm going to put it on the ornament for the rest of the project. All right, so we just did 5, so we're going to do 4. So 1 light gold, 4 dark gold, 1 light gold and a white, light gold, 4 dark gold, and a light gold, and go through skip the X, go through the first available petal. And again, if you're taking it on and off, let me actually give you a word of caution here. You'll want to, again, be mindful of that the thread is coming out of the same side you're going into. If you flip it over and you keep going in the direction because you didn't realize you flipped it over, the thread crosses and it twists everything. And you won't necessarily notice till you come back around and it's time to go in here. And the last time I did this, I had to take the whole thing apart because that whole row, I lost all that work. So just, again, be very mindful that when you are, if you hold it up and down, whichever side of the bead you're coming out of, keep going in that direction. There's no top and bottom. You can flip this over if you prefer to go in the other direction, but there is a right direction and a wrong direction. Two, three, four, one, one, two, three, four, and a light one. Looks good. It's also very common as I change rows, because the last two were the exact same, my brain is in the pattern of picking up 5 dark gold beads. So this is normally the point where I accidentally put a few too many on. I got a little knot. Basically, it's just a loop that kind of got tangled on itself. So if I move the beads around, I can usually pull it free. I did it again. My thread's a little twisty. I think one of the things that causes that is probably the fact that I'm using inexpensive thread, but also the thread might be a little bit big for the needle hole. The eye of the needle might be tugging a little bit. So I am no pro on needle sizes, or even, especially not thread. That's not the right color. But I know when I pull it through, it's tight. There we go. Light gold, 4 dark golds. Light gold, white, light gold, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a light gold. Looks good. Yeah. Just make sure you're going to the next flower petal that only has 2 strings coming out of it until you're at the end. And then look for the one with 3. Making my little baskets curling up nicely. And it looks like this is, wait, where do I go next from here? Oh, I got myself turned around. I already went that direction. Okay, so I'm going to come here next, and then here, and then I'm done. So I've done 4. Okay, we got 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, white. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Double check, looks good. Slide it on through. Already my tail's too long already. Did not adjust it. Maybe I'm paying more attention. I've become more efficient. 1, 2, 3, 4. White, white. 1, 2, 3, 4. If I were working with more colors than this, I would absolutely make sure that I had nice little piles. So I did one that had an ombre effect to it, and I think it was 4 or 5 colors that I was working with, and I had to have them in a row that I could just keep going like this, so I wouldn't have to think so much. Yeah, this one's coming along. These colors they're really pretty to me, and I'm not really a gold person. I really don't know that I love vintage gold, but the opal The whole combination, it just makes me happy. So, yay! 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that was it for 4. So we're going to go through here, all the way through a few beads. Again, I'm kind of just tug it now, in case I catch the thread, which I am very good at doing. Yeah, so beading really is, at least making these ornaments, counting, double checking your work, being able to thread your needle, and being able to manage your long thread. It's all twisted on itself. Sometimes if you realize you have way too much thread, you can trim some of your tail off. But I just push through. All right, so I've done 4. It's curling up nicely. I've picked the ornament color that I want, and it just barely fits around it. So let me go ahead and take a moment to pull it down. And then we're going to talk about making this work. So at this point, what I tend to do is I take my hand and I slide it so it's cupped. And you're going to hear me fiddle with this quite a bit as I work. After a couple more rows, it'll sit a little more securely. But for now, we get to fight against gravity and everything else. And if I pull the tension tight, it does stay a little bit better. So I'm going to keep my finger holding that string here while I use my right hand to pick up. Oh, what did I do? So I did 4 of the darks. We're going to do 3 now. 1, 2, 3, light, white, light. 1, 2, 3, light. Double check my work. All right, so pulling it tight, pushing it forward, sliding it through, and not stabbing yourself. And there's that one. So at this point, what's going to happen, you'll notice that it's just going to look like it goes straight across. And that's fine, because as you do the next row, as the whole thing shifts downwards, it will stretch out and the net will take effect. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, light yellow, white. Oh, I caught that accidentally. Sweet. Did you love it when the right bead just hops on your needle without you trying? That was fun. All right, slide it through. So you'll be fighting with tension just a little bit more here. Get my finger out of the way, pull it tight. And here I can see that there's some gapping from before. I can just try and pull a little tighter in that direction and it should tighten it up. Or you let it go, and honestly it can get evenly distributed around and it's not really an issue. Light, dark, 1, 2, 3, light. They look balanced. I've got 3 going. One, 2, 3, gold, white, gold. 1, 2, 3, gold. Looks good. If I do say so myself. Yeah, as far as efficiency goes, this part, my daughter is making an ornament right now, and we have these little ornament stands. So at this phase of the game, oh, what am I doing? Look at me talking and not paying attention. She actually hangs the ornament. She suspends it so that she can not have to try and hold it because her hands are small. So if you've got something to hang it off of, I got some ornament hangers to display my work, and I really love them from Amazon for like 10 bucks or 12 bucks or something. Oh my gosh, see, now I'm really not paying attention. It's exactly what I'm talking about. Counting and double checking, and even then, because I'm so all over the place, I'm just going to take a moment to look back. Make sure I didn't totally screw up everything else. 1, 2, 3. All right, we're going to do one more, and I have to take a short break. I am actually cooking dinner. I have dinner cooking, and I need to go get it out of the oven. White, light gold. 1, 2, 3. Light gold. Looks balanced. I'm back at the beginning. Go through one. Step up to go through a few more. And out that last big bead. And at this point, tuck it nice, slide it forward if needed, tie it a little bit more. And that's it for the moment. All right, when I come back, we're going to do the next one. And this is a really snug pattern. So if you are using smaller, not 8/0s, but 11/0s for these centerpieces, you might need to go one more repeat. I don't know, you might have to make adjustments. I think it'll be okay. We're going to keep going for it though and see what happens. All right, home stretch. Let me straighten this out. Okay, got my needle. I've stepped up. Everything's really snug, and again, it feels like maybe this isn't going to work, but the net will work. Trust the process. It should be okay. And if not, you're going to see how I make adjustments. Like, I did this and it was a little on the big side, so I made some adjustments, and now I'm wondering, did I miss a step? I don't think so. I think it's okay. But yeah, even the fact that as I pull it tight, this doesn't want to stretch very far without pulling some slack in there. All right, let me think about this for a minute. I pull this down. We might come back to this point and say we needed to make it a little bit longer. So what's happening, let me take a minute to explain what's going on. What's happening is where I said the middle was, seems like it's just a little higher than middle. So my rate of increase was so snug that as I'm trying to decrease at the same rate, the ball's too big for how I'm doing it. So at some point, you're going to have to add in a couple of beads to make it just a little bit bigger. I'm going to try a couple at this size. So the next decrease I would be doing is 2. So I'm going to just try it and see what happens. So I should have 1 light gold, 2 dark, and a light, and a white, and a light, 2 dark, and a light. So this is, according to the pattern, the next one, which means that we're at this row mirrored. And I worry that we're not far enough down the orb to do that. So I'm just going to do 1 and show you kind of how I'm checking this. Like, did I miss something? I don't think so. I have a tangle. Hold on. If I snug everything up, I don't think that's going to stretch very well. Yeah. Okay, how about this? At this point, let's go ahead and repeat the 3. I think that'll look okay. You really could do it anywhere. The amount you're increasing isn't really that different. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to undo it, and my attempt to undo is actually going to be to sew through the bead. If at this point, if I were to catch any bit of thread, this whole thing's going to be a problem. So we're going to be optimistic that I can aim well, because I've been lucky so far. Now I have a few too many, not enough actually, not enough beads here. So let me pull them down. And I'm going to again try and sew through and not pick up any additional thread. So as I'm poking through, I have my needle here, and I'm going to just make sure that I can kind of slide the thread underneath through easily enough. And because that's flowing through easily enough, I'm going to pull it through. The reason I'm doing that is to avoid having to take the needle off and have to rethread it, but if I do catch any threads, that will undo it. So if for whatever reason the sewing through doesn't work and I get a bit of a tangle, take your needle off, sew through it to undo it and pull the threads through. Okay, so now I have 2 here, and I'm picking up 1 more and a light gold and a white and a light gold, and I'm going to pick up 3 dark. And I apologize if you're following along with me and I'm all over the place here. Part of me thinks it's good to see the learning process, and I'm sure part of you is like, wait, I'm following along. So maybe I'll edit this out. So that feels like it's giving me just enough slack to work with. I think it'll be okay. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I had 2, but I think that's fine. All right, let's do this. This last row, not last row, this row we're on. 1 light gold, 3 dark golds, a white, a light gold, 3 dark golds, and a light gold. So for all of you single color people, it's 5, 1, 5. So we're repeating what we did the row before. I oftentimes put the extra repeat kind of row right in the middle, but I've undone and redone this so many times, and I don't totally understand why this time it's not working beautifully, because I did it almost all the way through and I thought it looked okay, but I must have changed something. Oh well, it'll be okay. I think it'll still look good. My tail's too long. There we go. You'll also notice that it's a little bit easier to work with because, hey, my thread's a reasonable length again. 1, 2, 3, light gold, white, light gold, 1, 2, 3, light gold. Looks good. Let's do it. All right, I'm sensing I still have a lot of white thread there. So if I can't pull this tight enough to get a reasonable amount of white thread for me, I might have to undo it and go back, but maybe I just need to let go of my high standards. This is why I haven't made one of these videos despite having done this process 40 or 50 times. Every time I don't like to just repeat myself, so I make adjustments, and then my adjustments result in slightly nuanced work, and every time just seems to be a little different. So, alright, we're getting there. White, no, wow, 1, 2, 3, light gold, 3 dark, 1 light, 1 white, 1 light, 3 dark. 2, 3. One of the things that I want to try is like an every other. So like all of the connector pieces would be every other. I think with black and white it could be either incredibly busy or very visually striking. So we'll see if I get around to that. Alright, I'm back home stretch for this row. And the next one's really going to be telling whether this works or not. Sort of the fun of it, right? Let's do a little. Alright, I will say that if I make a change again, if I decide this is messed up and I have to do it again, I'm probably going to be cutting the footage out. So if you're hearing this now, it means that things went well. So I'm going through the last, wow, I totally moved that off camera. I'm going through the last white, stepping up, pulling my thread through and keeping my fingers crossed. Yeah, so see, that looks okay, even though those are the same size. I think that's gonna look just fine. So now let's try and make it a little smaller so we can bring those diamonds together. All right, light gold, 2 dark golds, a light gold, white, a light gold, 2 dark, a light gold, and go through. We're almost done, you guys. I hope you have enough thread left. So if you don't, I didn't demonstrate how to do it because I really was working with a lot of it. But I'm going to show how to tie off my knots. Hold on. Light gold, 2 dark, a light, a white, a light, 2 dark, and a light gold. When I show how to tie it off at the end here, that's basically the process you do anywhere. You'll tie it off, you'll weave in the ends, you'll tie on a new one, you'll weave through your beadwork and get out to where you can keep working. So it's not the worst thing in the world if you're working with too short a thread. And I very much have too long to begin with, but 1, 2, 1, bouncy beads, 1, 2. All right, 4 on either side. Go through here. My daughters have recently discovered the joys of YouTube and watching Minecraft players do silly things. Minecraft and Among Us. Well, thanks for keeping me company. Me and my camera and my light. I find this process, aside from when I'm having to make decisions on, did I make it right? What pattern am I following? I find it incredibly soothing. All right, again, I got a light, 2 dark, 1 light, white, light, 2 dark, light. So through. All right, looks like I've got 2 more. Do we still call them petals? We're kind of past that point. Right. 1, 2, 1. All right, 4 on either side. And so this is the point where tugging it tight really does make a difference to bring everything together. So tension matters. You don't want it to slip too far while you're working on future rows, because if it's loose before, it just takes a lot of effort to get it all tightened up from several rows ago. Okay, so I'm going to go through my last 8 here to make the 3 into a 4, and so through, thread management all the way. All right, so I know I'm towards the end. I've done this set, so now we're going to do this set and then we're going to bring it to a close. So the next one we do is light, dark, light, white. Light, dark, light, white. That's not a bead, that's something else. Light, dark, light, white. That was from a different, oh, nope, hold on. Light, dark, there we go. I can do this. Home stretch. I make a lot of mistakes when I'm tired, so it's been a long day. Take breaks if you need to. I like to take the pause after I've stepped up from the previous round. It's just a little more secure. You're less likely to lose beads. All right, so I've got seven beads on my needle. All right, light gold, dark, light gold, white, light gold, dark, light gold. 7 beads. Go through. I love this part. I just get so happy seeing it all come together, and it's super fast. So you work hard in the middle and it all catches up with you towards the end. All right, I got 7 beads. Shorten my tail again. Ooh, flying needles. All right. Tighten through. I've still got a couple more rounds. At this point it gets complicated for me to see it. Okay, here's the beginning of our row. So 1, 2, 3 more petals. Apparently after I do 4, I need validation that I'm doing a good job, because that seems to be the trend of when I start to count. How many more do I have left? And I just love how evenly the netting looks around it. How even it all is. So hopefully, if you like doing math and calculations and whatnot, oh look, I have a mistake. Okay, so I picked up 3 beads and I went through. Nobody told me. Come on, guys. And there's a gap. And it's nice when I do this, I catch myself, right? So I keep my beads up higher. So I'm just going to slide these off and go back through that bead that I went through, the 8-0. Make sure that I'm free, and now pick up those 3 beads that I missed. 1, 2, 3 to complete the set and go all the way through. I'm so excited about finishing. I'm like skipping pieces, and this has absolutely happened to me before, and it'll absolutely happen again. Yay. Okay, let's do this. 1, 2, 3, white. 1, 2, 3. All right, got everything I need. All right, last one for this, and then we're finishing it off. Light gold, dark gold, light gold. Anyway, I actually think I started saying something and didn't finish it. If you like doing, so the rate of increase, you'll notice it seems like we have added 1 to each side. So we're increasing by 2 until we get to about the middle, and then we decrease by about 2. But that's something that you can play with and adjust. If your ornament has a little bit bigger opening at the top, the number you start off with, the number of flower petals around, you'll get the feel of it. And that's really, again, what I spend a lot of my time doing, is just getting the feel of it. Okay, so this last section is when all of these things are going to come together. So we're bridging the distance here, and the way that we did it before was a white, light gold, dark gold, light gold, white. But you'll notice we already have all the whites. We've already kind of included them from the row before. So all we're doing is adding 3 beads and sewing through. So for this, let me bring my pile a little closer. I'm not even bothering with this spoon. Hello. All right, that should be enough. All right, so let's do this thing. Light gold, dark gold, light gold. 3 beads on my needle, sew through. And as a reminder, I did step up. I think I pointed that out. And you can see how lovely that is when it comes together. Okay, let's do that again. Light, dark, light, sew through. Managing tension for this part is a little less important because I can pull it, and as soon as I let go, it goes back. But I'll show you how to finish it off. So, all right, 1, 2, 3, go through the next big bead. One, two, three. Go through the next big bead. 1, 2, 3. Go through the next big bead. 1, 2, 3. Oops, dropped my needle. Try that again. And I have one more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so for this one, I'm not going to step up. I'm just going to go through the one bead to start. Because what I want to do is pull it and make sure that it fits. At this point, if you wanted to get creative and figure out a way to close the flower and crisscross it or whatever, you can. But one of the things that happens is adjusting the tension, there's some gapping, and the row from before doesn't necessarily like to lay flat. So this is my chance to make adjustments. I think it's because of the thickness of the bigger bead, there's just going to be some space. So I have two choices. Option number 1 is I tie it off here and I let it be with just a little bit of wiggle room. Option number 2 would be I increase it, I add another bead in there somehow. Option number 3 would be to, again, I mean, honestly, let me think if I could do anything else different. No, I think this is where we're going to stop. I think it's okay. I think I might have made it a little too tight from the row before. There, let's see. I think it'll be okay. All right, so this is it. So that's the bottom of the ornament. And I can double check to make sure that it is pleasing to the eye. And it looks pretty symmetrical. That one row we repeated, you can't really tell much. Yeah. All right, so where do we go from here? So we can't step up anymore because we're not going any higher. But what we do want to do is I want to keep going around through that again. You'll notice that there is a lot of tension to keep this thing closed. Actually, yeah, it's hard. It's somewhat of an imprecise math, which makes it a little bit screwy. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm coming out of this bead here, coming out that way. So I'm just going to go through the next few beads. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to come out the white. And only because it's so tight, I want to make sure I don't go through any other beads. So I'm just going to go through those 4 beads there. And I've looped through my thread. I don't want to tie a knot like that. Okay. So my plan is I'm going to just keep sewing through a few more beads, and then just tighten up. And then once it's gone through most of it, I'm going to start tying knots and finishing this off. So again, I'm just circling through, and you'll feel it get a little snugger as we do this second pass through. Apologies, I keep moving this away from the camera because I'm trying to see what I'm doing. I've got part of a light and my phone in between me and here. All right. Again, you're working with fairly tough materials, so if anything's going to break, it's probably just your needle. They're pretty thin and flimsy by design, as we talked about. And if you want to just do 3 and then do the white one separately, that's fine. there's a little bit of a bulging happening. So what's happened basically is the netting that we've built, the structure wants to be just a little bit, wants to be around a ball that's a little bit bigger. So, but it does feel like I can let go and it's staying closed a lot more. So at this point, I feel good tying it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide my needle. Let me put it so you can see. I'm going to slide my needle underneath the work and coming out. So I'm going underneath this pass. So I've gone through a white bead and I'm going through, you can even see a little bit of the string there. And I'm going to pull it mostly through, and I believe this knot is called the half hitch. So I'm going to take my needle and I'm just going to go through the loop. And again, stabbing my needle so I can manage my thread better. I'm going to pull this tight and I'm going to do it slowly so that the knot forms close to where I'm coming at. Right now it's all tangled up over here and that's not where I want it to be. So let me slide my thread down, pull it nice and slow, make sure it's where I want it to be. So it's here, it's here, it's here, it's here, it's looking good, it's looking good, it's looking good. And then again, pull nice and tight. So at this point, tension matters again. All right, so I've just done one half hitch. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew through a couple more beads. Go through the next 3, 4 beads here, coming out the white one, making sure I've cut all the beads. And I'm going to do another half hitch out of this next exit point. What did I do before? I went from the triangle to the not triangle. Yay for flexible needles. Bring it down so there's just a loop remaining. Go through the loop. And I'm tugging slowly to make sure that my knot forms where I want it to be. And as you tighten it and as you work around, that knot starts to slip underneath other beads, which is perfect, so we can hide it more. All right, and I think I'm going to do one more knot. I'm going to go through a few more beads because I didn't finish going all the way around. Maybe I'll go through 2 sections this time instead of 1. I can go through the seed beads easily, so let me just do that. And one more of the white beads. And this time, instead of a half hitch, we're going to do that surgeon's knot. So I do find that it's easier to go from the triangle to the open space. It just gives my needle more room to work. And what we're going to do, I'm going to go keep track of where my loop is. I'm going to go through the loop once and coming around go through that loop a second time in the same direction. And that double loop really does make for a nice and secure knot. Make sure it's between the beads I want it to be and pull it tight. So the surgeon's knot has a little bit more volume to it, so just be mindful of that. All right, so I feel like I've tied enough knots. This thing looks great. I'm happy with the distribution. I'm looking at it, and where I added that extra 3, I'm looking like it's borderline. We might have been able to get away with it being a 2. We might have been able to make some adjustments a little bit lower because you can kind of see as I'm pushing on it, it's just a little bit loose. There's some wiggle room. So if you're working with bigger beads or whatever, anyway, the numbers might be slightly adjusted for you, but if you're using Tohos, this one works just fine. So to finish off, I don't want any tail showing and I don't want to cut my thread right after my knot. Some people like to do that, but I get questionable results with it and I would really hate for all this effort and it to all come undone. So right now I'm just trying to sew through and it's getting stuck on some beads. So my knot is here. So I'm sewing through here and I'm going to just keep going up through the ornament. I know some beaders and in some work, they don't want to tie knots. They never tie knots. I, again, am working with a lot of tension here, and I think my knots are getting hidden just fine. So, as I say, and I'm making yet another new knot. What happened here? How did I get such a beautiful knot here when I'm almost done? All right, so that process of tying a knot, going through a few beads, tying a second knot, I like doing that. It spreads the knot around a little bit. But if you run out of thread while you're working, make sure you have enough to be able to make some knots and just do that and then tie your knots and work your way back through the beads and keep going where you left off. So it's honestly not that big a deal. Yeah, anyway. All right, so I tied my knot somewhere around here. I'm pulling nice and tight to hide it. I think I just saw it sneak under there. I've got my tail coming out over here. Let me get my little snips. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull a little bit tight to cut that thread. So when I release, I can kind of adjust it, and voila, I'm done. So that took me a little over an hour to make one ornament. The ornament obviously was less than $1. The beads in total, it was less than a tube of the gold, the light gold, less than a full tube. So that was probably 5 grams. Not even. There's still a lot of beads on my board. Maybe 5 grams. So a tube of each, and then whatever. So I'll do the counts and determine that number. And again, it does look like we could have probably, the thing that I'm looking at is this one's a little bit shallower because we didn't bring it down. We didn't make it the 2 because I was worried it wouldn't fit. Go figure, it probably could have. Oh well, we're gonna go with good enough for this one. So that's it. I'm gonna pull out my little fancy ornament hook that I got and tuck this thing in. Honestly, I just got these today and they make me really happy, so we're adding this as a bonus. Tuck this in and swirl it around. And if I really wanted to be, if I felt really great about this and I was done, the last component of it I would probably do is use some craft glue like E6000 to secure the top to the ornament. But otherwise, here we go. A beaded Dollar Tree ornament. Well, thanks. If you like this, leave a comment and let me know. I can't wait to see your creations. Go ahead and tag me at Crafty Claire Renee on Instagram. I'd love to see your beaded ornaments. Have a great day.